We are Charlie Atkinson
Hugh O'Donnell. How you do?
on April 4th, Tuesday, 2017 at 83 Ivy Street, and we are meeting here face to face for the first time after a very short romance.
Yes.
Tell me why you responded to me, or
Well, my relationship to science. I'm really interested in the border between science and fine art, and humanities and science, and ways in which one can create a kind of bridge between the two things. I do a lot of my teaching around that kind of impetus, but my sort of core discipline as an artist is really working from nature and watching nature very carefully, and involved in a lot of abstraction from nature. Truth be said, my relationship to science is more of a romance than it is of a level of expertise.
romance is always indicated.
Yeah, one of my favorite philosophers growing up was Goethe, and I think that he had a great romance with science. I love his work on plants, and I think that, and relating it back to to affairs of the heart, is where it really matters to me, and not getting lost in the abstraction of science. So making it land somewhere where it's actually felt.
Yeah. Well, the words you use, the heart, science, romance, it takes you back to all the philosophers, and Aristotle and Linnaeus,
Yep.
and the creators and inventors with innovations.
Yeah, well, one of the inspirations in more recent times has been the work of E.O. Wilson. I particularly liked his book.
Edmund.
He came over here and was part of a symposium. I got to meet him.
Is he still alive?
Actually, I haven't checked recently.
Because he was a sort of a psychobiologist.
Yeah. His groundbreaking work on ants and the use of pheromones was like his big sort of entree. But since then, he's made it a mission to try and create a consilience between art and science. And he's even moved into the areas of theology. He wrote a really interesting short book on a conversation with a pastor.
Wow, with a pastor?
Yeah, talking to the Christian, I guess the Christian left, but appealing to the marriage between humanities and the sciences. Doesn't stop there. It also reaches out to theology too.
Well, it is really a game that everybody gets to play. There's no monopoly.
That's right.
on the intricacies and complexities and tapestries of the relationship of art and science, technology, philosophy, epistemology, and your comment that you began with by saying it's the border of the science and the humanities and creativity.
Yeah, an interesting thing happened to me yesterday. I woke up with a lucid dream.
Tell me about it.
Well, there's a painter that I know who's now deceased called Andrew Forge, and he made studies from nature which were sort of like you might equate them to pointillist work, where the image consists of tiny little dots of color, but his dots of color were based on perceived
Seurat.
Well, yes, but Seurat had more of a kind of color theory that was running there, whereas Andrew's work was more to do with the perception of actual local color in the environment. And so he would sort of like put down these measured sort of dots of color, creating what just looks like a complete abstract field of dots, except that when you look at it closely, you can see that the colors are very kind of carefully modulated natural tones. And I just had this voice in my head yesterday morning, and it was talking about the dying sun, saying that when the sun dies, it gives birth to new connective tissue. And this word connective tissue.
When the S-O-N or S-U-N?
The S-U-N, like when a star decays, when it goes nova, it just gives out all of this gas. But this is the sort of primal material that will now coalesce back again into something that will achieve mass. And it occurred to me that someone should continue his work, because if you progress further, these little dots are going to start to coalesce. They're going to start to reform, and they're going to start to create mass. And it reminded me of the Higgs boson particle, which is the particle that really perhaps creates a possibility for mass in the universe, so that all the atoms that can collect around each other. And
the Higgs boson, and the quantum theory.
That's right, yeah. And I had a student who was working with me a few years ago, and I teach a course called Site-Specific Art, which is to really sort of create work for specific locations, and the work would be for that place and only that place.
I've taken a first couple of glances at your YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And the YouTube focusing on site-specific art, and the role of not just being an artist or a sculptor, but getting a vision, getting a prototype, getting a team, getting an array of people who can collaborate to come up with something new under the sun.
That's right. And it's like when you work in a university like this, which is just like literally up the road. It's 5 minutes from here. So I've been on this campus for the last
I'm in the Cadillac building.
Yeah, well, actually, I did an exhibition in the Cadillac building, and the thing that I wanted to do was to really sort of unlock a lot of the creativity in the larger population, not just the people who elect to become fine artists. And I now have a class full of engineering students and law students, economics students. I got a lot of economics students. I've got one girl right now who's really interested in big data and math, and applying that to a kind of visual analog that could be developed as a site-specific piece.
Your phrase that really speaks to me is not only unlocking creativity of the artists and the sculptors and yourself, of course, but unlocking creativity not as a monopoly of the artists, but as a general birthright for all of humanity.
Yeah, right. Because the thing that people talk a lot about in education today is the fact that we're siloing, kids into kind of disciplines, into grooves, and it's very difficult for them to really get an experience of their elasticity, the elastic mind. They get sort of into solving problems, specific problems, and then they get stuck there. So, it's not natural for them to be in this state, but we actually sort of like train them to be in that place. And a lot of people want to figure out how you can make a much more of an open playing field. But there's so many barriers to this, because there are so many requirements of certain disciplines that don't allow you to experiment and go outside of your field.
Well, the title of your course, Art in Context,
yeah, that's right.
Is a beautiful name, because it shows the things that I'm interested in terms of the framework, not just, and I look at it beginning with a conceptual framework of how you're going to think about it in the first place, and then the structural framework, but connecting those dots.
Well, I'll give you an example. So you're referring to the talk that I did for TED, the TED Talk, and that one of the students in that I was just starting to talk about was a fine art student who didn't have really any interest in science very much. He was interested in architecture, but had no sort of real sort of opportunity to sort of really explore it. And he wanted to do a painting for the Fit Rec Center for the swimming pool, but he overextended himself and put himself up to fail. But then I told him to get a fallback thing they couldn't say no to, and he did, and he was able to create this wonderful mural. But he learned that how to do this and how to negotiate with people. And when he left, he went down to South Carolina. He walked into an engineering building, and he said to them, "I'm really interested in what's going on in the experiment in Geneva with the Large Hadron Collider, and I'd like to make a mural of that for this. So you've got a beautiful big wall out there. I'd like to make a painting on the wall of this experiment." So they looked at some of his designs, and they really liked it, because it really explored the inner workings of this thing. And then he set up a camera, filmed himself, and put it on YouTube. Or he put it out there in social media, and it was like a time-lapse stop motion of him making the entire painting. And I think he got a call from Geneva, asking if he'd make a proposal for the Atlas experiment. And he did. He made 16 proposals, put them all online, and then he actually got the gig. And he went down there and he painted the entire building. But he, in order to do this, he had to sort of really go understand, you know, this arcane world of physics into such a degree to be able to make it be something that they would absolutely love to live with. I think that was quite an achievement. And it happens when you could keep the romance alive, you know, of what's going on, and allow people to sort of like go down their own rabbit hole, you know, to take the lure and just go for it.
Well, I this morning, among many other things, I was looking into Shakespeare and realizing that the Gutenberg Bible, done in the late 1400s, with a Gutenberg with a printing press, set the stage for unleashing of creativity that was not possible before that time. So when Shakespeare came along, I guess it was in 1564, about, that the creative media that he was of that day, that was dealing with histories, with tragedies, with comedies, with romance, and they tried to figure out how to categorize those plays. But it struck me, comparing what you've just been talking about, of all the array of people that he had to get to print it, to get actors, to get the theaters built, to promote the plays, and to make the topics both poetic and soliloquies where he's talking to himself, and these became a mirror, a window into the world, but a mirror back into the minds of the people who were watching that day, and covered politics and history and economics and trade, and it was the way that it was the Google of its time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you start talking about Shakespeare, I start thinking about Galileo. You know, somewhat of a contemporary. And that wonderful time when he was at dinner with Catherine de Medici, and Catherine de Medici trying to trick him into a bit of pseudo logic. She said when Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, he told the sun to stand still in the sky so that the day would last longer, so they could win the battle. So if the sun was told to stand still, it must have been moving. So he turned to her, and he said, We look to the church fathers to tell us how the universe goes, not how to go to heaven, not how the universe goes.
Very, very good semantic difference.
Yeah, well, the ability to have control your rhetoric in those days was the supreme art, wasn't it? And words was everything.
Well,
to be able to handle discourse like that was everything.
And when you look at the broad play of from the, let's call it the Paleo age to the agricultural age, when civilization came along, and then you get into other scientific enlightenment, industrial age, then the digital age. I really believe that Daniel Pink was right when he said we're in the conceptual age.
Okay.
Where it's the meaning of meaning, and what is the meaning of is, and what is the meaning of wiretapping, and what is the meaning of life. What is going to give life meaning in an age where we're moving inexorably to virtual realities and artificial realities and augmented realities and massive multiplayer online role-playing games. All these things are happening, but the fundamental question is, as I see it, is how can we make life meaningful and worthwhile living?
Well, you know, you talk about the Paleolithic. You know, I mean, I think it's always been about connecting the dots. and to be able to think analogically. You know, it's the basis.
Think analogically.
Yeah, it's because it's the basis of poetic thinking. It's the basis of sentience. You know, so like